incident. He was a normal lawyer of that time, right? And that incident occurred just on a bus. So how comes when Gandhi returns, it was not the time of social media that the stories would have like flourished or everything. There were hundreds of people who went to receive him. Who were those people? Who had told those people that there is a man who is Gandhi, who is coming back from South Africa. He now stands up for his people. He is a activist, and he is your future hero. And God behold, the answer is it was the British press, on behest of whom? None other than the British government. So they had been promoting him for months in terms of highlighting that incident. So by the time Gandhi returned to India, and if you look at the pictures of that time, if you look at the newspaper clippings of that time, he was already made or turned into a hero by the British press. So that is what a lot of people, and that is a hard fact if you think about it, right? Use in regards to stating that he was cordial to the Brits. On top of that, one of the first things which Gandhi did when he came back with his newly found popularity is he was contacted by the British to fight the Nazis um, in the Second World War, just before the Second World War, when the situation for recruitment purposes, and he basically endorsed recruitment of local people who happen to be people of the subcontinent to join the British Army against anyone who opposes them. Now that again is a huge kind of a contradiction, if you ask me. That if, for example, and Aditya, I would like your insight in this, or Furqan, or Medusa, or Ishika, of course. How can you claim? My question is, how do you balance the two things out? On one side, you want freedom, and I understand. You're what you're basically stating is the fact that you're against violence, but how can you outrightly go and advocate for such a thing?
So, so are you saying that he wanted Indians to join the British army because he wanted Indians to work for the British in, like, defense of other superpowers? It could be multiple reasons, like,
I am not suggesting that. That is what some other
can you, like, I think there's a problem with your internet, Shah.
No, there is a problem with his mic. It's muting and unmuting on its own.
Unmuting.
Shachi,
Yeah,
can you
so it could be anything. Like, if you can share any article about it, it could be like, probably he thought that the Britishers were uh, better colonizer than other colonizers, because if you compare the Britishers with the likes of the Japanese, they were horrendous. Like, if you compare them with, like, other even European colonizers, they were at least, like, somewhat better than the others, right? And it could be totally false statement. Like, I don't know. I haven't heard about it, to be very honest with you. If you can share any article about it, I can read about it. But to say that, just because he asked the people to join the British army implies that he was a British stooge. That's like, we don't know, like, what was the reason behind it, or was it even true that he actually did ask? I don't know.
I think he was asking that how did Gandhi gained such popularity, because that era was not
Hello,
an era of.
Karan.
Hello, ji, hello. How are you?
Hi
So
Karan, how are you doing?
what are your views about Mahatma Gandhi? how do you view him? Do you think he was a complex personality, or do you think he was a good person, or do you think he was a evil guy, or how do you view him in India's context?
एक second. Let Ishika complete, then Karan can join in after that. Ishika, go on.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, I think if I heard it right, so the question was that how did Gandhi get the popularity, and how, like, the journey of becoming father of the nation, right? If I'm not wrong, Shaji.
Yes. So just before he became, what was the reason of his popularity, and why do I see? Was it a thing? Were the Brits afraid of him? That is why they were covering him, or if that was the case, they would have only covered him in the UK or Africa. Why was this stage being built even before he had returned to from South Africa? Is very interesting question, and that's not something which I have an opinion on in terms of a conclusive one, or why he recruited people or endorsed the British Army, like I said. But these are some of the points which people who are radically against him like point out, and these are hard facts. So they are worth thinking about, if you know what I mean. Go ahead, Isha.
I think, as far as I know, like according to my limited knowledge, it was the Satyagraha after which he gained much of his popularity. He was opposing the Rowlatt Acts, where the Britishers could, like, could like imprison anyone without a trial for the suspect of sedition. So I think the Satyagraha movement in the 1990s was the first movement where he gained much of the popularity. And after that, is it was like a chain of movements going on. Then came the civil disobedience movement, and the massacre in the Amritsar also happened. So, like, he actually became kind of a, you can say, a huge political figure after the Satyagraha movement.
No, but Ishika, my argument is, and what the facts show, and first of all, I think you said it incorrectly. Not 1990s, not 1990s. People are going to
No,
like,
1919, 1919.
yeah, 1919 is much
Yeah.
later. So Gandhi, when he traveled to South Africa, was 1893, Ishika.
Mhm.
And he returned in 1915, and that's when he basically began to advocate. So what the time period you're referring to is much later on. That's 4 years after that. On his return, if you look at the headlines from that time period, and if you look at the amount of people who went to receive him, that is very interesting. That a person who's suffered from an incident in South Africa, a normal run of the mill person, okay, a bit upper class, very extremely educated, he returns and he's received as a leader by hundreds of people. How do they know about him? Why do they know about him? And why is the British government allowing that? Do you understand? Especially when there is a lot of other movements which have begun to show up in form of cracks, and that is what the RSS or right wing people or anti-Gandhi people usually bring up. That's one of the primary points they bring up.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the people who have read about his time in South Africa would know that he was kind of a activist back in Africa, South Africa too. So remember that the Indians who were working in South Africa, or the people who got a formal education in England, were not any kind of ordinary people. The likes of Jinnah and the likes of Gandhi, all these people who studied in England were the elite of the elitist people from South Asia or India in those times, they were like, just imagine that, not more than a few thousand people were able to study in England during the British era. Just couple of thousand people, or not more, not even more than